All
This
right.
is recording, so we can go anytime.
Oh, okay. So cue the UFC music. We're keeping that in. All right. Welcome to the second episode of the Moss Sports Podcast. And I guess I'll go in order by name, if you haven't already figured out the name of the podcast. We've got Mauricio, Emmy Award-winning Beltran. We've got Andy, local sports reporter Robertson, and myself, Spencer Griffin, who is no longer affiliated in sports in my career. So just a fan at this point. But
you used to be.
Well, yeah, I used
some capacity.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to switch things up on you guys a little bit. I know our notes have a certain order. I'm going to change that a little bit because I'm very excited to talk about this a little bit more. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about international affairs with what's going on in Russia and the Ukraine. Nah, I'm just messing with you guys. We are not going to get that serious.
I was about to say.
I have no input on that, but I am going out of order. I do want to talk about, it's currently February as we're recording this. When this comes out, it'll probably be March, but March Madness has not quite hit yet.
Copyright.
But all hell's broken loose in college basketball as of yesterday, which was Saturday the 26th. And I want to know who you guys think is going to win. I know many of your picks may have lost, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I hadn't really noticed that a majority of the top 10 had lost yesterday until we were talking this morning. But because I had jokingly put Gonzaga. I mean, kind of, because I was like, one of these days they've got to win this national championship. They've been ranked in the top 5 for several years now, and they still can't do it. And then last night before I went to sleep, I saw they had lost, or at some point during the night. So I was like, well, I don't think that's going to happen. So, and then,
I don't know. I think the biggest knock on them is that conference. It's just so
it's so easy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But then
I know St. Mary's was ranked, but I mean, still, that's that conference, like you said, Maurice, is just not great.
Yeah.
So it's always, St. Mary's, Gonzaga, and San Francisco, and that's it. And then the rest, and then it's like, that coach has been there 23 years, and they're always ranked in the top 25, and they always get like
players too.
Yeah. And then they get to the tournament, and it just like, it never happens. And I think like the runner-up is the best they've done in 23 years.
Andy, did you watch the game last night?
I didn't. I was putting a baby to bed. I did not get to.
I just had to put mine in the penalty box. So.
Yeah, he was.
I watched a little bit of their game yesterday, and then the one on Thursday or Friday.
You watched the Gonzaga game?
Yeah, I watched them against San Francisco on Thursday, I think, too, and then yesterday a little bit too.
What are your thoughts on Chet Holmgren?
It's pretty good, dude. It's like really good. Man, like they get all these players, and they have, obviously they're really talented, but I guess just when it comes to the big ones, it's just like,
Sorry, Andy, I think we cut you off a little bit there. If you want to continue going with what you had going.
No, I think the other team I had a joke here, but you went a different direction. So I will refrain from the joke. But
we'll put it in post.
But anyway, I don't know. It seems like one of those years Duke's number 7 on one of or they were number 7. I imagine they'll shoot up in the rankings now. Yeah. It's Coach K's last year. They've got plenty of talent. I know that ranking wise, they're not in like the top tier rankings of scoring and then defense, but I mean, once it comes tournament time, they can put it together. I think their previous 2 losses, they've only lost by 1. The one before that was by 3, and then their 4th loss on the season was by 5. So they've played every game they played. Every game they've lost, it's been close. So
yeah, and they dominated yesterday. They won by 15 against Syracuse. And
yeah,
I know Mauricio's a big fan of the conspiracies, so he'll say that all those teams lost to get Duke to number 1 during Coach K's last season in the matchup against North Carolina.
They want him to have like a really good year before he goes. So it's like, just let him win. It's the best for the conference.
Have you seen those ticket prices for his last game at Cameron?
Dude,
it's ridiculous.
I would have paid.
I'm glad I only got 2 seats. But Mauricio, who you got winning the whole thing?
I think I was looking and everything, and I'm like, Auburn's obviously like really bad. Like they started out, the year really good, and then they lose to Tennessee yesterday, and I'm like, no, not them.
That may be a little hyperbolic calling them really bad, but
they're
I
really
get what
bad.
you're saying.
I bet you they'll probably go out in the second round.
Okay, you heard it here first.
It's just not in them. It's not in them to go far and win national championships in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just have a feeling it's gonna be somebody from the Big East, probably like Providence, Villanova.
I was wondering if somebody would bring up Providence. They're having a great season.
Yeah, they're really good, dude. Like really good.
The only thing that scares me about them is a lot of their games against unranked opponents have been super close. I think they had a double overtime, and which that could very well prep them for the crunch time games. March Madness gets super intense, but interesting pick there.
Yeah, definitely somebody from the Big East, I think.
Gotcha.
Who do you have, Spencer?
I have 3 teams down here, and they all lost. So we shouldn't be surprised. But and then, of course, I'm a big numbers nerd, so I'm probably going to hit you with some of these numbers. Don't let me get too long-winded. If I do, mute me. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible because we got a lot going on. So like you said, the top 6 all lost yesterday. They were all on the road too. Number 9 also lost on the road. My first pick was Arizona, and they had the worst loss yesterday by 16 to Colorado. But how nice. Colorado is 19-10. Arizona's now 24 and what is that? 24-3, 14-2 in the Pac-12. I'm sorry?
25-3.
Oh, okay. Hey, I didn't get them enough credit. But yeah, I think their only blemish on their record before yesterday was losing to then 8th ranked UCLA, but bounced back to beat them 10 days later. And then, of course, I did this research before yesterday's games, so bear with me if these are not entirely correct, but they currently ranked 3rd in the nation in scoring offense at 84.8 points per game. And then they've got a really good team as far as spreading the wealth. So I'm definitely going to butcher these names, but they've got Matherin, who averages 17.4 points per game, Tubelis with 15.2, and Kokolo with 12 points per game. And Kerr Krissa is really exciting player. He just had, it might be Krissa, he just had triple-double the other night and averages 10 points per game. So I think even though they lost, and I'm going to say this about every team, even though they lost, I think I'm still going to favor them because it's just a bump in the road. It happens. There are a lot of games in college basketball. Second, I had Purdue. Guess what? Like I said, they lost. Not a horrible loss though. Michigan State, 19-9. It was like last second 3. It happens. So we'll see if. I don't know. We'll see if they can perform under the pressure. This one might be a little scary because of that. But March Madness trademark has a lot of pressure, and we'll see if they can do that. But I really like Jaden Ivey. I'm not going to read all these numbers because I don't think anybody cares about them. Jaden Ivey and Zach Edey, the big man, 7'4" sophomore out of Toronto, holding it down in the paint. And then my last one will be Kentucky, who I'm glad lost yesterday. Arkansas took it to them at home, as they have everyone so far, it seems like. So really, that's not a bad loss, though. I mean, I think Arkansas was even favored by 2 or 2.5 at that one. So, yeah, not horrible. And Oscar Tshiebwe, man, that guy is sick. He can out-rebound any guy in the country. He actually leads the NCAA in rebounds at 15.2 points per game. And it's not even like, you can look at the numbers and see how good he is. But until you actually watch him, like, you swear that dude has glue on his hands all the time. It's just insane how he pulls down all those rebounds. And I think when they get Severe Wheeler and Ty Washington fully healthy, that they'll do well. Yesterday they came back from a 3-game absence, so they're a little shaky. But once they get them back, I think they can make a deep run.
I was going to ask you guys if you think Arkansas can kind of repeat their Elite Eight performance from last year, or you think the talent's not quite there?
Let's hear it from you first, Mo.
My brother was talking about that the other day too, and I told him I don't think they'll get that far this year. Maybe Sweet 16, but I don't know.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like compared to like what we had in the past. I don't know. I think we're starting to get used to like certain expectations in Arkansas with basketball and football, and I'm like, I think we still got to think balance, like don't we're not gonna shoot to the stars right away, but maybe Sweet 16, I think. But
man,
I wouldn't be surprised if they go out in the second round.
Oh, you got everybody going out in the second round. Somebody got to win it.
Yeah. What was that team that upset Virginia?
Oh, University of Maryland, Butler County.
Yeah.
Yep.
16-1. Yeah.
That's who Mauricio has winning.
Yeah,
it's their year.
Course.
Oh no, it's their year.
When Arkansas lost in the beginning of the season, they lost to Hofstra and Vanderbilt. I think I was done. I was ready. I was like, this season's over. We'll wait till next year. We got a good draft class. But yeah, like you said, they've been really outperforming. And I guess it just took them a while to come together as a team. And Musselman changed up the lineups after the Vanderbilt loss. And it's really paid dividends. They have no business being as good as they are right now. Mm-hmm. I do agree with Mauricio and think they will go out probably in the second round. I think that's what I'll go with. It may be a bit of an upset. How far do you got them going, Andy?
I don't know. I don't see a repeat from last year. I think they had a little bit better talent overall. But maybe third round at the most. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So do you guys want to talk about staying on college basketball? Do you guys want to talk about the Juwan Howard stuff? Has too much time passed? Or what do you guys think about that?
I don't know.
It's just like it doesn't seem like it was like a bad punishment, It was like they were like, oh, it's like a little slap in the hand, and that's like because it was like the rest of the regular season. It was like 4 or 5 games right now, so it was like
figuratively a slap on the head.
I didn't see Juwan Howard slapping Chris Webber when he called his timeout.
Man, I agree though. I think 5 games, which is the rest of the regular season, I think is pretty lenient for my blood. It feels like it sets like a dangerous precedent in the future because, like, you see, if I had enough hatred against an opposing head coach, and I knew I was only going to get 5 games,
I'll do it again.
Either my team's doing really good and they're already set up, or my team's doing really bad and the season's over. I'm taking that suspension and I'm trying to knock dude out at half court. So that's my thoughts on it.
Well, I did read up on Juwan Howard had an incident with the Maryland coach from last year too, during the tournament.
Okay.
So I mean, at this point, he with a little bit of history now, maybe that 5 games was a little lenient. Mm-hmm. But also, I can imagine the NCAA doesn't want to take him from the sidelines during the tournament.
Yeah, I originally thought that Michigan might have tried to use this as like a for-cause firing, even though that's way premature. I know he had a great year the previous year, but this year they're stinking it up. Probably overreaction on my part. But they have a chance to meet Wisconsin again in the Big Ten tournament. I really hope it happens. How many? My next question is: how many coaches could Coach K punch and not get fired?
Oh, dude, he could punch as many people as he wanted, and he'd probably still be there.
He'd have to kill a man before they took him off the court.
Coach K can go Mortal Kombat on somebody, and
he could kill somebody, and it would be okay. They're like, oh,
he's retiring anyway.
Yeah,
so.
let him do his thing.
it would be amazing for him one last game against North Carolina to give that one final Hadouken.
Hey, if I can go back just one second, because I did want to talk about, like, I guess this kind of, I was reading about Patrick Ewing had said that he kind of hopes that, or after the Juwan Howard incident, he said he kind of hopes that this, of the two teams meeting at half court and shaking hands kind of goes away, because emotions are high after basketball games. And it got me kind of thinking about the unwritten rules. Like baseball, they're always talking about the unwritten rules of baseball, and it kind of spills over. I mean, there are unwritten rules in other sports as well, but nobody wants to discuss them. And I think this meeting at half court thing is kind of one of those unwritten rules. Because what he was saying was, like, during COVID, everybody would just wave to each other, like, see ya, and then they'd walk off the
that
court.
Was a little odd, but yeah, you're right.
But
what do you think? Would you get rid of it?
I don't know. I mean, I think I don't have a problem with it, but also I do think it's kind of awkward. I mean, like, just a team gets slaughtered and they have to go shake the hands of the other team. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it just seems a little weird.
I get that. I think it's a respect thing, I guess. Respect for your competitors. I'm on the fence about it because, like you said, on the one hand, it's a very weird tradition and it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not a big deal. But on the other hand, I feel like refusing to do that and not being able to keep your composure in that situation just means you're very emotionally immature. I don't think just because somebody's like that should make you have to cancel that tradition altogether.
Right.
You mentioned the unwritten rules of baseball. I'm usually the guy on the other side of that. I don't care about your unwritten rules.
Right. So. Yeah.
What do you think, Mauricio?
I would get rid of it. It's really awkward, you know. Like I remember when we were playing football in high school and stuff, and you know we tended to be on the other end where we were like losing all the time and getting blown out and stuff, and then you had to go there and like shake their hands and be like, oh, good game and everything, and stuff. Like, you don't feel like it at that time, you know. You just got like beat up and everything, and you still gotta go shake their hands. I'm like,
and especially if you got some specific bad blood on the field with another teammate or another opponent's team.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't make my point with the unwritten rules. I think because I had seen that Juwan Howard was mad at the timeout that guard called, but then people were saying, well, Michigan was still in a full court press down by, I forget what they were down by, but they had like very little, like maybe the slimmest chance of winning that game if we're coming back. So I mean, that's what I meant with the unwritten rules. Like, you know, like who cares if they were in a full court press or, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, and to your point, I saw admittedly some Michigan haters online bring up, I think it was 2 instances earlier in Michigan season where he had done the exact same thing as far as call a timeout while they were up a certain amount against teams. So really, I don't think he has leg to stand on there.
Yeah.
But let's move into another silly scenario, if you will. Who would be the scariest head coach of all time across all sports to fight?
The first guy that came up to my mind was Bob Knight.
Fair enough.
He choked a player and he threw a chair across the court.
So, and let's say that was a very, very good chair throw.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
So, I mean,
who was the guy from Temple? Didn't he also choke a player?
Man.
Maybe
I forget what his name.
I can't remember. We'll move past it.
Also, Mike Singletary, he was a interim head coach for the 49ers for a little bit.
Yeah. That
man dropped his pants at halftime to make a point to his team, so he's got a little crazy in him.
Who hasn't done that?
Right?
You've done it way too many times.
All right. Easy. What about you, Mauricio? Oh, wait, no, sorry. You got more?
I've got just maybe a couple more.
Okay, go ahead.
Gabe Kapler, the manager of the San Francisco Giants. That man's pretty ripped. So
he's pretty young too, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's young. He's ripped. So, I mean, and then the other one I just thought of yesterday, Greg Williams. I know he hasn't maybe been a head coach, but that whole Bounty Gate thing.
That's a really good pick. I forgot about him.
So with Bounty Gate, you know, I think that maybe he would want.
Yeah, he's obviously insane.
Yeah. Yep.
That's scary.
What about you, Mauricio?
The first one that I thought right away was Woody Hayes. I don't know if y'all remember.
Oh, was that the guy from Temple?
Woody Hayes?
No,
Ohio State.
He's the Ohio. He was the Ohio State coach for the longest time. He was always like punching people, especially journalists.
You're just looking out for fellow journalists.
And then remember the last one, the one that actually got him fired was the one when he punched that guy from Clemson when he
in the neck.
He picked him off and he was running down silence and then like he just stepped into the field like.
Yeah, that one still gets played a lot.
And that one's the last stroke because I was looking him up and apparently he had a long like history at Ohio State of like trying to punch people or again like most of them were like camera people, you know, like journalists, people that were asking him questions, I guess, you know, and I think almost said one of them was also like the Iowa athletic director.
I feel like you're very specifically scared.
Yeah,
because of the journalist incidents.
I don't know. It just I think it just that was like it just stayed in my mind, like him punching the Clemson guy, and then he also kind of reminds me of my high school football coach.
Oh, so I guess okay. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know who I'm. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're now retired, right?
Yeah, yep. Thankfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he can't terrorize people anymore. So I guess that always just stuck in my mind. So like every time I'm like, no.
Every time you're on an interview, you have PTSD flashbacks of
dude, I'm like,
Woody Hayes and your high school football coach. I didn't go with guys with a physical history. I just went with the most, I think, physically imposing. And then I had one dude on my honorable mentions who's just seems kind of crazy. Look, I got real with this. So I went with Mike Vrabel, currently coaching the Tennessee Titans. Former linebacker, he's 6'4", 260. Looks like he could lift me over his head. He looks terrifying. Obviously, I'm not going to want to fight that guy. And if he slaps me in the noggin like Juwan Howard did, I'm probably out for a while. Honorable mentions, I will go with Mike Ditka and Ozzie Guillen, which Ozzie Guillen might seem a little surprising because not the most physically imposing guy, but I feel like he's just absolutely crazy and go berserk and just never quit. Whereas Mike Ditka is obviously a bigger guy with old man strength. So he could definitely take it. So since that is done, you guys want to move on to some college football, or would you rather take a pass on that this time and go with the NBA?
No, let's do college football.
Sounds good to me. So first, we'll talk about the transfer portal, which has been in the news, of course, everywhere because, you know, some people are for it, some people are against it. A lot of players lately have been bouncing around from team to team with seemingly no repercussions from that. And on the flip side, you have coaches that don't like it. They've also been moving around team to team with just leaving their players high and dry. So tell me, what are you guys' thoughts on it? For it, against it, pros, cons? Let me know.
I'm for it.
And why is that?
So I feel like you shouldn't be tied down to the school because, you know, I feel like there's a lot of things that once you get on campus, once they have you locked in, because they can promise you everything, right? And then once you get on there, they're like, well, it's not going to be like what we told you, you know? And then you're basically stuck there. And so you got to have those options, you know, like, oh, okay, it's not going to work out here. Instead of spending there, you know, 2-3 years, hey, you know, have the free option to like, hey, I can make the decision for myself and go find a place that better fits, you know, my time there.
Do you think there should be a waiting period like there used to be or no?
No, dude, that just made it worse. Because like, I think that actually, you know, I think it was just to deter people from transferring because you're like, oh, okay, you can leave, but then like you have to wait a whole year, you know, and then who wants to practice and not play for a whole year, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Understandable. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I certainly see the bad sides of it. But ultimately I'm in favor of it. Because like you mentioned, coaches can just up and leave whenever they want to. I mean, we saw it with Lincoln Riley. And, you know, did
he leave?
Yeah, he was still on contract.
I'm definitely messing with you.
Oh, okay.
I've not been living under a rock.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was the biggest example of that this offseason. And, I mean, he can leave for a better situation, possibly better pay. Why can't players do that?
Yeah.
And I mean, we had someone locally do that here. That I cover college football, and we had a wide receiver. Honestly, the whole time, Tyler Hudson, I was wondering why he was even at UCA because his talent.
I was going to say for the University of Central Arkansas, for those unaware.
Yeah, but like I was thoroughly like, on why is he at UCA? He can be at a bigger school. I mean, and that's probably a testament to the UCA recruiting staff. But he entered the transfer portal this offseason after. I mean, he has the school record in receiving yards now after 3 seasons. So he's accomplished everything he's probably wanted to accomplish at UCA, and he better positioned himself at going to Louisville. He went from an FCS school to a Power 5 school. Their wide receivers coach has coached numerous NFL talents. So he's put himself into a position to possibly go to the NFL. So my thing with it is why I'm not going to hold a 18 to 22-year-old person and not knock them for the decisions they made when they were 16, 17 years old, and then put themselves in what they probably feel is a better situation. Because I'm not going to do that with a coworker. If a coworker wants to go off and do something better, make better pay, then go for it. Why can't we support these student athletes doing the same thing?
I have seen a lot of your tweets, though. You've been tweeting at these athletes, calling them bums because they leave. But, I get it. On your specific example of Tyler Hudson at UCA, it does make me wonder. Do you think UCA, if the rules were the same now back then, do you think they could have had a lot of other players take that same leap? Because we know we've seen a couple of UCA players in the NFL. We've seen some very successful quarterbacks, receivers, running back, defensive guys. Do you think some of them could have made that leap?
Possibly. I mean,
I
don't know. It's hard.
The names that come to mind for me are George Odom, Robert Rochelle, specifically, I guess.
Yeah, but it's hard to say because even if Tyler stayed, he probably had a good chance of getting drafted.
Oh yeah.
But I think moving to Louisville helped his stock, and maybe Robert Rochelle was the highest draft pick in UCA history. He was drafted in the 4th round by the Rams. And Odom, I think he may have been either a 7th or a non-draftee signing. And he's killing it on special teams with the Colts.
Yeah, he may be one of my favorite UCA players of all time. He's a blast to watch.
Yeah, but it's hard to say if they made that leap, they could have done that as well. Yeah. I think for Tyler's situation, it was the best for him because he probably should have been playing at a bigger school from the beginning.
Yeah, I will say as a fan, I do like it that I'll have some motivation to watch Louisville this year. Usually, obviously, not a team I really pay attention to, especially if they're middle of the road ACC. But now that Tyler's playing on that team, I'm definitely going to have to tune in and see if he can keep up his success, especially playing with Malik Cunningham. But in general, I agree with you guys. I think it's a no-brainer. The coaches shouldn't have different rules than the athletes as far as transferring without any consequences and leaving those players just kind of alone by themselves. Seems to be too much of a double standard. And yeah, I think definitely the transfer portal should continue on as is, even though I know a lot of people have really ripped into it along with the NIL as well. But on the flip side, I do see that it kind of leaves open the opinion of players giving up, kind of giving them an out if they don't make it as a starter. And we have seen some of those players bounce around from program to program and haven't been able to really make it. And they ultimately end up fizzling out. And honestly, does it really affect the whole system that much? But I think it really eliminates the meddling of the NCAA, because they've had instances in the past when there was that 1 year rule where it seemed like they just flipped the coin to see if the guy could be eligible or not, or a lot of coins, if you catch my drift. Because I swear some of these guys should definitely have been eligible. They moved because of maybe a family member's medical issue or something like that, and they still weren't eligible. It just seemed really messed up. So I think this definitely fixes that. It's not like they're under contract, like Mauricio said. They're not, not being paid by the school, and so they really shouldn't have any allegiance to the school or feel bad for leaving or anything like that. Moving on, staying with college football, but moving on to college football playoff. Obviously, a huge topic every year. They recently met and decided, no, we're staying with 4 teams until 2026. What do you guys thoughts on that?
They missed out on that. They should have definitely expanded, because it's not enough with 4 teams, because there was this year there was some good teams that got left out, and other years too. So it just seems like they missed on a good opportunity, to
What's
make
the
it more
perfect
exciting.
number for you?
I would have been happy with 8. Even 12 would have been okay, but I know some people were 16 and 24, 64, and I'm no.
I think you're gonna have a hard time getting anybody on board with anything past 8 right now.
Yeah.
What about you, Andy?
I think, well, the thing is, if you go up to 8, then there's going to be people well, you've left off this team and this team, and I know there's always going to be those situations, but and I don't know that there is a perfect number, because I mean 4 is obviously not good enough, because we see I was looking at something one time that Alabama has maybe missed one or two college football playoffs since it started. Ohio State and Clemson have been the other 2 constants in there. Oklahoma. I mean, we're getting the same teams a majority of the time of this college football playoff.
Just a different order.
Yeah, and it's honestly, I don't care about it anymore. I don't watch it. I don't watch them, because I mean, you pretty much know who's going to win. Of this year, you had Alabama and Cincy, I think, play each other. Yeah. And then you had Georgia and Michigan on the other side. You knew it was set up for a Georgia-Alabama rematch.
Well, I think, too, you brought up the semifinal games. I think an argument there is there always seem to be blowouts in the semifinal games. So why even bother expanding it if it's just going to create more blowouts? Yeah,
I don't know. But I think my main problem, and I think the main problem we saw this year, was that Cincinnati had to rely on other teams ahead of them that already had lost games to lose again in order to get into the college football playoff. And they shouldn't have to do that. Yeah. And it's only because they're not a Power 5 school, but a group of 5 school, that they had to continually win. And I think that's where the current format is really missing.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue too, is the G5, P5 split.
Yeah, because, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all revenue-based. Again, I mean, we talked about this last week. It's expansion's revenue-based, which is confusing why they didn't want to go ahead and expand it.
More money.
But, I don't know. I think some of these bowl games where 6-6 teams are playing in it, bowl games have been – there's so many bowl games now. And I think
they couldn't even find enough teams for them.
Right. Yeah. But I think some of these bowl games probably need to be cut, and then you can probably expand the playoff. You can still call it the Sugar Bowl or whatever if you want to, but I think,
and definitely sponsorship the mess out of it.
Oh yeah, but I think that you can. I don't know. I'd be okay with 16 teams, but I know you'd 16?
Have to. Ooh, okay.
I know you'd have to. Well, I mean. Just because, like I said, you're still going to have people be like, oh, 8's not enough because you...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, what is FCS at right now?
I want to say 24.
Okay. I thought it was more than 16. I just couldn't remember how much it's at. Okay.
But
I mean, we've seen it work there.
Yep. Right. Yeah. But, I mean, kind of, because North Dakota State, who should be in... They should be in FBS. North Dakota State...
is a whole other point. That drives me insane. But
yeah. North Dakota State has won probably 8 of the last 10 national championships. So they've been dominating.
I mean, at least we're seeing other teams get the opportunity. I mean, to win the whole thing, you got to be whoever you face anyway. So we at least get to see teams that have earned the right to play try to face that team. If they come up short, they come up short. At least we see a system that's fair and gives everybody a chance.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just, we're going to see an SEC team go in. Yeah. Because especially now with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC, and we're seeing these conferences become bigger and more bigger name schools are jumping in these conferences to where the group of five is going to be almost, a completely different step than what it is now.
It's just so subjective right now. If they could put 4 SEC teams in the playoff and people wouldn't question it, they'd do it. They just know they'd get too much flack for it. But my solution to that is I think I'm an 18 guy, at least for now. It could expand later, of course. But I think in order to take some of that objectivity out of it, you take, what do I have? You take the, Power 5. So you take 5 conference winners. I'd say you take 2 at large after that, which that is subjective. And then after that, you get a G5. And that gets a little bit subjective too, because do you take a G5 conference winner, or what if one of those happened to not win their conference? Obviously there's always going to be some subjectivity in it, but I think that at least you have like some meaning behind the conference championships, because we've seen teams lose the conference championship, still make it in the playoff, and end up winning the whole thing. I believe Bama's done that. So it kind of, why does the conference championship matter that much then? So I think you can take some subjectivity out of it by doing it that way.
Didn't Georgia lose the SEC championship to Alabama? And then,
maybe it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Maybe both of them have done.
Yeah.
We are going to talk about some NBA. We saw an abysmal dunk contest last Saturday. Of course, we had just gotten off doing the podcast, so it's going to seem a little dated, but we're still going to talk about it because it was awful. So what do you guys think that they need to do to make it good again? Because right now it is just, it's rough.
I mean, what can you do? Everything that's, I think that you can physically be done has been done probably once or twice.
Just cancel it.
It's kind of become like, it's, the same issue with the Pro Bowl, like what can you do to make it better?
Well, certainly not at a wide receiver catch contest, because that wasn't it.
There's got to be some incentive or something. I don't know. Yeah, something good, but it's just not. You can't really do much.
Yeah.
Maybe just get rid of it.
Hey, just that's have the one solution.
Just have the All-Star game. West versus East, and that's it.
Okay. What about you, Andy?
I didn't watch the event in real time. I went back and watched the highlights, and you may have brought this up in your notes, but the announcers, it seemed like the whole time, even during the highlights, they were just dogging the competition. And so when you've got the announcers not
for good reason,
when you've got the announcers not on board with it, then it's gonna detract people from watching it. It'll be like, if Kenny Smith is hating on this thing, why do I need to enjoy it?
Yeah.
And honestly, I think over the last few years, whenever I've watched it, I haven't been too excited about the dunks that I've seen, and that may be because, this was the 38th year they've done it. So, like Mauricio said, maybe everything we've seen has been done before. I don't know. And I know you mentioned in your notes about how do we get stars back into the event to
quit bringing up my notes.
I'm sorry. Stop it.
I'm joking. But, you're fine. I send them to you.
But I was trying to pinpoint the last time a big name has participated. And you have Dwight Howard in 2020, but he was not the Dwight Howard of the early part of his career. Giannis competed in 2015, but he was in his second
season. A literal big name.
Yeah. Notice I didn't attempt Antetokounmpo.
Hey, you got better than Shaq.
I think anybody can. And Aaron Gordon competed in the 2021 as well.
Yeah.
But, I think something else I found was the format has changed several times throughout the years. To where it was first just, I think, a couple of dunkers going back and forth at it to maybe 4 to 8 and then it was on a timer, and then it was an East versus West battle one year.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
It's been left to fan vote. It's been in the hands of judges. Like it seems like it's changing every other year. So with that, if you keep continually changing the rules or the format of the event, people are not gonna understand what the rules are. I know it's been the same for a few years now, but and I don't want to steal your thunder here, but there has been a bit of controversy in how the event has been judged when you do leave it up to the hands of the judges.
Looking at you, Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, because Aaron Gordon said he wasn't going to compete anymore after the last time.
I mean, when you do all you can to win, and then they take it from you like that, I don't blame him.
Yeah, because he should have probably won against Zach LaVine. But
I think so too. But even he got robbed even worse in 2020 against Derrick Jones Jr.
Yeah,
none other than Dwayne Wade.
But this year, none of the dunkers earned a 50. Last year, none of the dunkers earned a 50.
Well, I mean, see, I don't think that's a good point personally, because I think the judges start
subjective.
Giving out 50s for anything. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't think any dunk deserved a 50 this year.
Right. But when you have multiple attempts to pull off a dunk, then to me, I don't think you can. If some guy finally dunks it on the 8th time, you can't be like, oh yeah, he deserves a 10 for that dunk, because the degree of difficulty is obviously hard for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, dunking in Tim's, yeah, it probably has a little bit more weight, but I didn't think the dunk itself was that special.
Yeah, it's not sexy. It's like, we know in our head that it's physically going to be hard, but
yeah,
it's definitely not a sexy dunk. But yeah, I think you brought up the Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon dunk contest, and I think that's really when it peaked, was 2016. That may have been one of the all-time great dunk contests, if not the all-time great dunk contest. But ever since then, it's gone downhill. Saturday night was super embarrassing. Like you said, the announcers were even dogging it, and I think it was justified, because I got people in my ear telling me what they think they should change, and so it's bad when even my own mother is throwing around suggestions to fix it. So take notes, Adam Silver, because she says that she proposes raising the rim a few inches between each round. Hey, I'm into that. That's something a little different. I know Andy the purist in him wants to keep the rules the same, but
I want a trampoline added.
Well, that's not it. She also thinks you should only. Oh well, no. This is let's see. Oh yeah, I also polled my wife, which sounds not good. I asked my wife. I questioned my wife, and she says she wants to see people dunking over cars and objects again.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, as
only
long
if
as
they jump over it long ways, right?
Yeah. Tell me, not a bumper, and not sponsored by Kia either.
Not over the hood.
Don't be afraid to sponsor us. But
can they dunk over a Ford Bronco, like the bigger part of a Bronco, or a semi? I want to see someone dunk over a semi.
That would be incredible. You're honest. You said they've done everything. They've obviously not done that. So she says you should only get 3 tries, whether your hand touches the rim or not, because that was kind of the point of contention the other night. And then she thinks maybe bringing back the timer could help too. And then I have a quote from my wife here. It says, quote, "Piss or get off the pot," end quote. So, hey, she's in your ear, Adam. Do something about it. But to your point, when you said that everything's been done, I am going to disagree with you there, because I think I've seen some videos online on Instagram and YouTube. There have been some insanely creative dunks. These dudes aren't in the NBA, but they have obviously got great hops. My only issue with that is that's probably all that they do in practice. So I guess I get where an NBA player is not going to take up all of his time in practice trying to do stuff like that. But I think obviously there's more things that can be done, or at least recreated, Just take the shtick of and the gimmicks of the throwback jerseys and the Superman capes and the sponsorships out of it.
Yeah. And I think one thing I didn't hit on is, and the injury risk of it as well, is probably why we don't see those dunks that you're talking about, or we don't see the big names,
superstars,
participating anymore.
Yeah.
So, because I know that's a big reason why the players don't put in max effort during the All-Star game as well.
So let's move on to a different event, the 3-point contest. We'll probably just touch on this briefly. I was excited personally. Oh, Andy with the T-sip. I was excited to see Cat win the 3-point contest. I think he's been slept on a lot as a shooting big for a long time. But what are your thoughts on them continually adding different point values to the balls, especially attaching them to sponsors? For example, here's the 4-point ball brought to you by Mountain Dew. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, anything that helps, make it exciting. I'm down.
Wow, didn't expect that. Okay.
Yeah, dude. Anything. You gotta make it entertaining again.
Okay.
I'm not gonna watch.
Hey, I'm into competing arguments here. Let's go for Andy. What do you think?
I think they should keep the values the same consistently as what it's been. But if you're going to add more value, add a little bit more time, and then add a rack toward half court, maybe the Steph Curry range, and
maybe Lillard.
Maybe make those the higher point values.
Okay, I could definitely do that.
Just because, I mean, it's the same thing with the dunk contest. When you keep changing the format, it's going to be confusing for other people.
Yeah, true. And going back to the 2016 dunk contest with Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, I'm going to talk about Zach LaVine right now, and it's Andy's team, the Chicago Bulls. So mainly for you, Andy. Sorry, Mauricio. I saw some discussion online about it and figured I'd get your take. So we know LaVine, fantastic player, great shooter, an athletic freak. But if you're the Bulls front office, you give him the max this offseason considering his injury history.
I think the team that they've built this year has been the one to try and keep him in Chicago. I think they said that multiple times in the offseason, because he is a good scorer, and he is, I don't know. I know people dogged the last contract that he got, but they also
people also trashed the DeRozan.
Yeah, they did. So I do think that he is one of their pieces that they want to hold on to and keep together. But you're also looking at how they're going to be able to offer him a max. I know they have the advantage with his bird rights and everything, but you picked up Vucevic, who's, I think he's still under contract next year. Lonzo Ball just signed a 4-year deal. DeRozan is under contract. Caruso. I mean, you've got all these guys that are under contract, so there's going to have to be some roster shuffling, I think, in order to get DeRozan or LaVine to stay.
No, I guess never mind. I was going to bring up Patrick Williams, but he's still going to have his rookie deal for a few more years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sticking with NBA, Mauricio, we'll bring you back on here. I'll let you answer this one first. So Zion Williamson has been in the headlines a bit lately with his weight not being managed great and possibly forcing himself out of New Orleans. So what are your thoughts about that, and how does that affect the next CBA for the players and owners negotiations?
And it's just like, it's crazy that he's been having all these like weight issues, I can't, because like when he came out of college, it was like, oh, dude, like this is like the next big deal, And then seeing him in the NBA, and I'm like, man, what's going on? Like there's something else going on with him.
Yeah,
maybe it is time for him, just cut the ties with New Orleans.
Yeah, I just know that if I was making that much money, I would eat whatever they told. I'd eat a dog turd every day for a year if I was making, that much money. So
that's the thing you got to think about, like the mentality, because it's like, you're getting all this money, and all they're asking you is to follow maybe these rules, like this certain diet and do this and that. It's not like asking you for the moon or anything, but like.
And to be fair, he has been injured, so it's not like he can work out on his foot. But there are ways to get around that, like getting a swimming pool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's been 3 seasons, and he's played a total of 85 games, which is coincidentally the exact same numbers through 3 years as Greg Oden.
I was just gonna tell you, I was just gonna bring up Greg Oden, and I'm like, man, it just seems to be like that, like a lot of those times when it's those big name players, like those injuries catch up, and it's just like.
You mean the talent they had, just LeBron James.
Andy, what do you think? Did you hear the things JJ Redick and CJ McCollum said on it?
I did. I cannot remember off the top of my head of what they said, but I did remember because I know you had brought up the whole is this his way of forcing his way out of New Orleans, and I think people constantly joke about LeBron being the team's GM or coach, and I think maybe there.
Oh, you mean let GM?
Yeah. So maybe there may be a little bit of truth to that. I think there might be, but you pointed out the Kawhi situation in San Antonio when he was injured. I don't know if he was completely injured or not that whole time, and then the Ben Simmons situation most recently. Which it's kind of weird because I don't know what I don't know is how teams will value Zion right now if he were to try and force his way out because he has played so few games, because his weight is an issue.
You just have to value him on pure potential still.
Right.
And that's about it.
And, with him playing so few games, is he going to be able to stay healthy? Because I know the weight issue is also a concern of can he get up and down the court?
Yeah.
With dealing with injuries like a foot injury and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just wonder where his value's at if he is trying to force his way out.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I brought up, and I'll see your thoughts on this as well, the CBA negotiations between the players and owners the next time this comes up. I'm worried that Zion doing this, if he truly does force himself out of New Orleans, like you said, alongside the Ben Simmons situation, Kawhi Leonard, you can go back to Anthony Davis, who also forced himself out of New Orleans. I think with that happening that many times, that's going to allow the owners to leverage that against the players way too much. If they're going to hold that over their heads, and I'm afraid we're looking to another lockout if that's the case, because the owners aren't going to let that happen. When players can dictate their way around the league that easily and refuse to play, I think that's the biggest danger to all of this, is the precedents that it's setting.
I agree, because we're seeing it with the MLB. The players want a little bit more control over things, and the owners are not wanting it, and it has led to a lockout. And it's been we've wondered if there's going to be a season underway, which this morning I saw that we'll back up a little bit.
Hold on. Breaking news.
We have some breaking news. I saw that I think the MLB owners said that February 28th was the hard deadline of we've got to get a deal done by this date or we're going to not be able to start the season on time.
Well, that's tomorrow.
Well, that's tomorrow. And so this morning I saw that there could be an agreement by tomorrow. I think the two issues are the luxury tax and Super 2 status. So I don't know. The article I read was like, yeah, they're going to get a deal done tomorrow, but the meat of the article did not sound very confident at all.
Okay.
So, but back to the NBA with their CBA, I agree. I think it's going to be, if you have players sitting there forcing their way out, then you're going to have issues with the ownership being like, well, if we draft this guy, he's going to bolt as soon as he can to.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to create a lot of issues because we've already seen how players are going to go off and team up whenever their contract is over anyway.
Yeah. And well, I mean, Yeah. Speaking of jumping ship, though, we saw that LeBron has already admitted that he would jump ship to go join his son. He wants to play for at least a year with his son, Bronny. So that kind of brought up an interesting scenario in my head. And for the sake of argument, let's assume that when Bronny's eligible for the NBA draft, he goes straight out of high school in 2024. So let's assume that LeBron is still playing at a relatively high level. But, he's on his way to retirement because before long after that, he's kind of mentioned it, just wanting to play with his son a little bit. Now, we know Bronny's a decent player. We've seen some highlights of him dunking and stuff like that. I can't say I've seen too much, just a little bit. He obviously wouldn't have this much attention on him if his dad wasn't LeBron James.
Yeah.
But how high would you draft your team how high would your team draft Bronny if it meant you got at least 1 year of LeBron James at any price, essentially making you a contender for that year? Or would you? Would it be worth a number 1 pick, a lottery? What do you think?
The number 1 pick for sure.
Oh, you'd say number 1.
Yeah,
okay.
if you're gonna get LeBron for at least 1 year or 2, maybe. Like you might as well risk it, Like
I definitely know Andy's gonna disagree with you on this one. He's got a little of that. He's drinking that haterade, man.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Would you pick him at all?
I mean, yeah, I'd pick him, but I don't know that I would surrender a first round or a number 1 draft pick for Bronny if he's not the number 1 talent in the draft. Just because LeBron is approaching 40 years old and, as physically gifted as he is, he may not be able to continually play at the high level he is.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought too. But look what he's doing at 37 right now.
Yeah, and you have Tom Brady as an example too. I know that's two different physical activities.
Steal my notes.
But I don't know. I think you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket if you take Bronny number 1 overall and then bring LeBron in when he's almost about to retire.
But you can guarantee yourself a championship, it's worth it,
But you're not guaranteeing yourself a championship, though.
Look at the Rams. We gave sacrifice picks and players, and look at us now, champions.
He does have a point. I mean, I think a lot of franchises would give a lot of things to win just one championship in the last X amount of years.
Right. I regret it in a couple years, but for now, look at us. We're on the top of the hill.
So you can acknowledge it.
Yeah. So I would give up. I don't know. Like, let's say you don't have the first pick, but you could trade away
your 3 years,
3 years of draft picks, and then because if you think about it, in the NBA, only maybe the top 5 players actually make an impact in the NBA draft when you draft them, and then first round and then the second round guys, you don't really ever hear about them. They end up going to China or Europe and playing somewhere else.
I guess you don't know Ayo Dosunmu.
I've butchered his last name. But no, I do think Mauricio is underplaying some of those late lottery and second round draft picks. They can definitely pan out. Some of them are exceptions.
It's just candy. You can just give it away, for something else.
You're giving away draft picks. He's embraced the LA lifestyle.
I think that just, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a GM or anything, but we've seen how, especially this current Lakers roster, how it's been constructed, how it's not working. Especially with the talk around Westbrook.
That's GM for you.
Right. And so if he goes wherever Bronny goes, who's to say that who's to say that LeBron won't try and dictate the roster, what it'll look like, and it may not be a championship worthy roster then. And then so you've wasted a number 1 pick on a guy who probably isn't talented enough to be a number 1. From what I've heard, Bronny's not supposed to be a number 1 pick.
I know. I think you're right. But I don't know. It's a little bit of a mixed bag for me because I kind of agree with a little bit of what both of you are saying. Because I think if you're looking toward the future, you obviously don't want to do that. And a lot of it, I guess, is going to depend on who's available and how good they are. But you're risking, 10, 12 years of possibly franchise, face of the franchise for 1 year of maybe getting a championship. But at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of teams would give up a lot of things to just have one shot at the championship. And if they're picking number one, chances are they've probably not been good for a little bit. So it's definitely going to be enticing. And I think my strategy on all of this would be to get Bronny as late as I could. So probably not going to be too late. Maybe it's probably mid lottery, maybe late lottery. And then I would surround him with talent, with free agency, and I would dare LeBron to take the vet minimum. I don't think he's doing it. He says he will, but I don't know if he's taking the vet minimum.
You just gotta not worry about the future. Just think about now, you know.
I mean, he could definitely do it though, because he makes more from endorsements than he does the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe he would.
Let the next regime, once you get fired, you know, like worry about the issues in the future.
Yeah.
You know, win the championship the first 2 years, you know, and the next 3 years are bad, you get fired, but then let the other people worry about the future consequences.
Reese wants that championship now because he's got a taste for it.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move to NFL real quick. We'll go the talk of the town right now, real grass versus turf. Where do you guys stand on it?
Real grass.
I think we're all going to agree here. Andy?
Yeah. After the OBJ injury in the Super Bowl, you saw a lot of NFL players take to Twitter to
trademark.
Yeah. Oops. They took to Twitter to express how much they don't like playing on turf. And I was watching SportsCenter this morning, and they showed a highlight of the national championship game where do it.
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
But where Alabama wide receiver, I forget his name right now, but he suffered an torn ACL in that game.
Jameson?
Yeah, and
Jameson
that was on
Williams?
turf. And as soon as OBJ went down, in that replay, I knew he had a torn ACL. And that's the dangers that the turf causes, a bunch of ACL injuries, because there's not really any give to those
They call it the turf monster for a reason.
Right, because if I don't know how familiar anyone is with how turf is, but it's a concrete surface underneath the turf with padding and those rubber pellets or whatever is on there. Whereas you're playing on natural grass, it is grass. Now I will say, there, you know, whenever it gets to be kind of dry, I know you can water the field, which I've. One of the games that one of our local high schools has natural grass still. I think they're the only one that has natural grass now. And the sprinklers are going off during the game. So you had the teams line up for kickoff and the sprinklers would just go off. And it was kind of funny, but
it's a fan's dream.
Yeah. Which I imagine NFL teams will not have sprinklers on their field.
It was you hit the Buffalo Wild Wings button.
Yeah.
You see what happened?
Yeah. But also, I kind of wonder, and this is just me not being knowledgeable about it, but those teams that are up north and I imagine Green Bay probably plays on a natural grass turf or natural grass field, so this is probably dumb on my part. But like Minnesota, Detroit, like how are they going to get their natural grass?
Oh, you can import it in the dome pretty easily. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm obviously not super well versed on the advancements of playing surfaces, but I'm pretty sure you can get it in.
Well, I know the Cardinals, at least the Cardinals, and I think there's a couple other teams roll their field in from outside, but I don't think these teams are necessarily, their stadiums are equipped for that kind of equipment.
Yeah.
So
maybe not.
I don't know. Like I said, that's just probably me being dumb, but I know from my experience when I played on turf as opposed to other surfaces, my legs have hurt a lot more than if I were playing on another surface. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think until there are like the proper advancements in turf technology to make it safer, then I think it's got to be all natural grass. You brought up high school. I think the high school teams or schools rather like it because of A, the aesthetic, B, the ease of maintenance, and then the low cost of maintenance. I think all of those factors make it really enticing for high schools. I shudder remembering the turf burns, but I do I did enjoy playing on it as far as soccer went because it was such a consistent such a consistent bounce of the ball.
Yeah.
So from a competition standpoint, I get it. We had played at other high schools who had natural grass and didn't properly maintain it, and that was almost more dangerous than turf because of the uneven surfaces. But obviously, with the NFL, you're going to have the right people maintaining it and keeping it good.
You have those examples of like Heinz Field where people constantly trash that though, but that's also because Pitt plays there too, right?
Yeah.
So they're playing a game before they have a NFL game the next day. So
yeah. Well, all right, that about does it for us. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Moss Sports. Andy is ready to get out of here. Mauricio too. We'll see how much you heard our kids going ham in the background. So
I know mine screamed.
I heard it. I enjoyed it. See you guys later.
All right, dude. Bye.